Usually I do the offering. Okay, that would be great. Usually I do the offering before the.
You bet, baby. Good morning and welcome to Unity Spiritual Center of Portland. I'm Reverend Sydney, and whether you are in the room with us or you are at home in your own room, it's time for us to gather together in the upper room. We're going to go to that upper room of consciousness, and we're going to celebrate as a community in love. And knowing that on this Mother's Day, we all have that energy within us that is about creation, nurturing, and love. Dear friends all gathered around, there's something I would say, that what brings us here together has blessed us all today. Love has made a circle, it holds us all inside. We're strangers or as family, and loneliness can't hide. You must give yourself to love, if love is what you're after. Open up your heart to the tears and laughter. Give yourself to love. Give yourself to love. I've walked the mountains in the rain, and I've learned to love the wind. I've been up before the sunrise to watch the day begin. You know, I always knew that I'd find you, though I never did know how. But like sunshine on a cloudy day, you stand before me now. So give yourself to love, if love is what you're after. Open up your heart to the tears and laughter. Won't you give yourself to, oh, that love is born in fire. It's planted like a seed, and love can't give you everything, but it gives you what you need. Love comes when you're ready. It comes when you're afraid. It will be your greatest teacher and the best friend you have made. So won't you give yourself to love? Love is what you're after. Open up your heart to the tears and laughter. Give yourself to love. Give yourself to love. You can sing it with me, you like. Won't you give yourself to love, if love is what you're after? Open up your heart. Open up your heart to the tears and laughter. Won't you give yourself to love? Give yourself to love. Give yourself to love. Give yourself to love. Thank you.
Oh,
Thank
yes.
Amen.
Thank you, Reverend Sydney and Charlie. Give yourself to love. We welcome you this morning to Unity Spiritual Center of Portland as we do just that. The universe is inviting us to open our hearts, our minds, our very being to the love that we are. And happy Mother's Day to all of you who are mothers in every myriad, every essence of the way. You know, Naeem Karoli Babas, who is a 20th century Indian mystic, says, "See all women as mothers. Serve them as your mother. When you see the entire world as the mother, the ego falls away." What would happen if we switched to understanding this world as the mother? As we gather this morning, wherever you are, whether you're in this room or around our globe, I just invite you to recognize that divine love within you, that mothering essence that rises and heals and harmonizes in your life, in our lives as we gather together. So let's begin this service in prayer with that awareness of the divine love living as us now. Mother, Father God, infinite Spirit, we open our hearts, we open our being to the great revelation of the love, the very vibration of love that we are, and to the deeper understanding of all that we are called to know, to share, to be. We simply say, yes, here I am. And for every soul that is hurting this day, we surround you with that love, with the understanding that you are an infinite creation of spirit, here to live, to love, and to be that movement of spirit. We hold this, we know this for every being, and we hold it for our planet as we awaken to that deeper understanding of the presence and power that guides us all. For this opportunity to be together in consciousness, in love, in light, we are so blessed, and so it is. Amen. And so we welcome you this morning to Unity Spiritual Center of Portland. I want to share with you a little of what's going on as we focus on transforming lives. Our belief is that every one of us came onto this planet to evolve, to transform, to rise to another level and another place. And I just wanted to share with you, first of all, going further with Spiral Dynamics, Reverend E.J. Nile will be giving just a 1 week, it's a workshop, Wednesday, May 19th at 7 p.m. You can sign up for it on our website, unityofportland.org, or on our newsletter. And if you're not signed up for our newsletter, you can do so on the website. There's also, if you're here today, there's a green card out in the entryway you can pick up. It's $25 for that workshop, and she's talking about what is the scientific basis for the rise in consciousness and the evolution that we're being called forward into today, and what does it mean in our world? So I am looking forward to that. We have a new workshop starting. It's a 4-week class, called Embracism. Raina Imig is doing that. It's in June, the 4 Mondays in June at 7 p.m. The cost is $80, and this is a special price just for Unity. I appreciate her willingness to be a part of this, and it's simply, it aims to take those with a racially privileged position from confusion to awareness to integration, and from integration to action in service of changing the racist structures that we inhabit. So it's a wonderful opportunity. Again, you can sign up on our website or on our newsletter. We're having a book sale. It'll be out in the parking lot. I actually don't know which parking lot yet. Saturday, June 26th. If you would like to donate books, please do. We also now have added craft tables. So if you have been crafting during this pandemic and would like to have a space at the sale, please contact Beth in the office and she will work with you. Our youth and family ministry begins next week, just little bit by little bit. They'll be meeting outside. It starts with our preschoolers. They're bringing in 1 class a week, and we are just saying thank you, God, and we will move from there. All right, I want to just take a moment and welcome anyone who's new to our community, whether you're watching online or you're here in the room. We just hold you in that space of knowing that who you are is an infinite creation of spirit, and that there are no mistakes. We're right where we need to be in the moment that we are meant to be, and that life moves through us. So we invite you to sign up on our website. And we are going to take a moment and sing. So we have our congregational song.
Yes.
And the words will be up there. So whether you're at home or here, we invite you to stand, leaving your masks on, and just enjoy the music.
This is God's temple. And if you don't know this, then just allow us to sing it to you. Hey, do you know you are God's temple and the Spirit of God lives in you? Well, hey, do you know you are God's temple and the Spirit of God lives in you? Yeah, let Spirit guide you whatever you do. Let your light shine, the light shining in you. Hey, do you know you are God's temple and the Spirit of God lives in you? Oh, yes, I know I am God's temple and the Spirit of God lives in me. Well, oh, yes, I know I am God's temple and the Spirit of God lives in me. I let Spirit guide me, whatever may be. I let my light shine, the light shining in me. Whoa, yes, I know I am God's temple and the Spirit of God lives in me. I'm going to have Charlie keep playing. This is Lisa's favorite song, so we're going to do it again. It's our mother's gift to you. Here we go. Keep clapping. Hey, do you know you are God's temple and the Spirit of God lives in you? Hey, do you know you are God's temple and the Spirit of God lives in you? So let Spirit guide you whatever you do. Let your light shine, the light shining in you. Hey, do you know you are God's temple and the Spirit of God lives in you? Then you say, oh, yes, I know I am God's temple and the Spirit of God lives in me. Oh, yes, I know I am God's temple and the Spirit of God lives in me. I let Spirit guide me, whatever may be. I let my light shine, the light shining in me. Oh, yes, I know I am God's temple and the Spirit of God lives in me. Well, oh, yes, I know I am God's temple and the Spirit of God lives in me.
All right. And I just invite you to just look around the room, wherever you are, and whether you're doing it with your mind and looking around the world, or you're looking around here and just recognize you're seeing Spirit. The eyes of the infinite are within each of us, and that ability to see Spirit is such a gift. The reason that I loved this song so much was that, oh, do you know you are God's temple, was that our youth and family ministry, when we had about 45 kids, would sing that at the top of their lungs. And it was half the room saying, do you not know you are God's temple? And the other half saying, oh, yes, I know that I am God's temple. And the idea of every youth in this country knowing that they are the infinite and they have it within them inspires me in so many ways. And so as we move into a time of getting quiet and getting ready for our meditation, I just invite you to remember that divine that is within you.
Rest in me, rest in me. I am love. Rest in me, yeah, rest in me. I am love. If you want, you can sing with me. Rest in me, rest in me, rest in me. I am love. I am love. Rest in me. Rest in me, yeah, rest in me. I am love. I am love.
As we relax our bodies, turn our attention inward. I am love. I open, allowing the very depth of my being to rise, to know that that the truth living as me now is always connected, always supported, always surrounded by the light, the infinite intelligence of the universe. I rest in this knowing, in this vibration of love living as me now, in the light, in the silence. Throughout my journey, this sacred, sacred journey of a deepening of my understanding and my willingness to follow the divine guidance within, I am open and receptive to that infinite spirit of truth. And for this great, great awakening, I say thank you, infinite spirit. And so it is. Amen.
Rest in me, rest in me. I am love. Rest in me, rest in me. I am love. Rest in me, rest in me. I am love. Rest in me, rest in me. I am love. Where I am, God is. Where I stand, God is standing strong. Where I breathe, God is breathing life in and out and through me, as me. Where I sing, God is. Where I dance, joy lifts my feet. Where I live, beauty is flowing free, in and out and through me, as me. Where I doubt, God is a faith in me where I cry. God is the comfort there where I seek. God is the answer here and now, forever and ever and ever. Where I speak, truth is where I work. Love is my career. Where I play, I know God is playing boldly in and out and through me as me. Where I am, where I stand, where I play, where I work and breathe and move, and where I sing, where I dance my dance, wherever I go, where I pray and take and give and live. God is, God is, God is, God is, God is, I am, God is, I am, my dance, the dance of God in me, the dance of God. God is.
Where I am, where I dance, where I sing, where I live, this infinite intelligence is. Oh, thank you, Reverend Sydney, as we are able to take that into our very being. I have a feeling a few of us may have felt like God's out there somewhere, and if I could just run fast enough or grab something out there, maybe, and put it in here, maybe I'd find that presence and that power. Right now, we're in our third week of actually a 12-week series looking at spiritual principles, because we know that the principles that live within us are part of our toolkit and our ability to expand ourselves, to evolve, and to move through difficult times. And so I just want to mention that the first week we started with faith. And we know that faith sets our direction. What happens when we say God is here, right now, in my life? Did you feel a difference in your body? It's like, oh, I don't have to hold the world up. Oh, I don't have to solve all of the problems. Instead, I get to hold a space within me, just recognizing the divine. And then I get to begin to choose where that next step is. So the first idea we looked at was faith, which sets our direction. The interesting part is understanding, which many of us don't even realize we have, is the bigger picture. God is. There's a quantum field, a very vibration of energy that in any moment that I acknowledge it, that I breathe it in. Now, we can't take Sydney home with us and have her play to us at all times of day or night, although we may desire to do that. Just simply, God is. But the understanding quality, and it's a power in us that already innately knows it. Your being already knows it. That's why we get this, when we hear spiritual principle, these universal truths that are always true throughout all of history, we find ourselves pulled up by them and lifted because we have a deeper understanding, a bigger picture of the universe. Today, we're moving into a very interesting one. So we started with what I always learned was, and we learned these in Unity Sunday School, these kids learn this. So when they sing, the presence of God is within me, they're taught that's faith, that's understanding, and that's will. And today we're going to talk about will. And many times, that's the one we leave out. How many of us have ever started on, let's say, New Year's goals, New Year's resolutions, and within 3 days, they're gone? Now, I want to see how many people have done that? That's actually an act of will, but it's our personal will. And how far does it get us? They say about 2.5 days maximum if you're really, really lucky. But there's also this divine aspect, divine will. And when we align our personal will with that divine will, we begin to move and to shift and to find a deeper part of ourselves that will take us through everything, because we're connected to that presence and that power of God. And Charles Fillmore used to say, the one we're doing next week is imagination. He said, you always start with faith no matter what, but he said when you have those three, when you have understanding, God is. When you have will, you lift your will to God's will, to a divine will. And you add imagination, you can create anything you want in your life. And so we're going to look at these from that place, because when we do, something else happens. But I want to start, the will motivates us. It puts into action the self and the active powers of ourselves. I spent a lot of time saying, what is will? What is it? And then I finally realized, and Dorothy Pearson, one of my mentors, said, the only way we can truly access divine will is to give up our will. And so when I do these 12 powers and I call them forth, every single time I say, not my will, but thy will. And I know the universe's will, that is deep desire, the quantum field, that deep desire for every part of humanity is for us to know ourselves as that infinite. It's absolute good. The desire of the universe for humanity is absolute good. Now, you may not have noticed it, but humanity has free will, and we use it in really interesting ways. And so our journey along life is to learn to attach our will to a higher presence, not my will, the personal, small human self that can only see so far, but thy will. And it begins to draw us higher into a step and a path that we couldn't have ever seen, but we know is ours to take. And we have done it many, many times. And so we're using the book Divine Audacity. And I just love, she said, have you noticed that human willpower is insufficient to carry us from an idea to its fulfillment? Will is the power that gets us to fulfillment when we've aligned it with divine will, when we find a higher way. And she said, our brains favor survival and safety, which means we tend to exert our will in the direction of self-preservation. How many of us right now have our brain saying, just let me stay safe, just let me stay here. Can't we just get back to normal? Can't we just... And what we're being asked to do is to open to a larger understanding. We are the universe becoming aware of itself. That means we're a part of the evolution, and we're being asked to evolve. And she goes on and says, I'm not faulting our brains, it's how they work. When we rely entirely on personal or human willpower through our willfulness, it becomes a handicap to fulfilling our desires and dreams. And she said, every known religion recommends seeking a greater will or higher purposefulness. And of course, Jesus talked about prayer, and he said, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Now, if you look at a metaphysical interpretation of that, that's a higher understanding of the universe. Most of us have these blinders, and anybody ever get an idea of like, they are not good? And then we do everything in our personal power, or that should not happen, and I am going to show you how it's not going to happen. That's the personal will. You can see it, you can feel it. That idea of that will that happens from heaven, that what they're talking about is higher, a higher understanding. And so we're a part of that channel of that will. And will is not bad. Many of us have been taught that it was. I'll tell you this, you used will to get here this morning, to get out of bed and get seated and get a cup of coffee. If you got that, will actually is something we already use. We just don't realize we have it and where we go with it. And so I want to start with one of the things Charles Fillmore always did. He said, if we're going to look at an idea, then we have to look at what it's not. And he said, will and determination are not the same thing. He said, will is a soul power, an aspect of God. And what we often think of as of the will is an idea of determinism. I am going to have this happen. And will is not the ability to force or repress things. You know, in 12 steps, you have to get to a place where it's like, okay, God, I align my will with your will. I am willing to accept that there's a higher power and I can't do it all alone. That's one of the greatest awakenings we can have. And honestly, every single day, having that awakening, I know that as an evolving creation of spirit, I don't know where we're going in its entirety. But I know that there is a divine aspect of the universe that is moving through me, and I have things I am to do. So how do we do that? You know, this power, he said, will is, and this is Charles Fillmore, divine will is the ability to decide to move directly in line with a decision, to engage with a decision and become possessed of it, to allow ourselves to move forward. But I find when my personal will does that, it lasts about 2.5 days, if I'm really lucky. But when I align with an inner calling, an inner knowing that there's something for me to do, that there's a step I am to take, I have everything I need to take that step, even though often when I look back, I don't know how I took it, how I decided to take that step, and how I had the commitment and the willingness to often walk through what appeared to be hell to get to the other side. Now, hell, as I always learned it, is a sense of separation from God. And so the ability to walk through that is literally, it's that inner knowingness, that will that says, I am more than this. There's a time when our knowing gets to expand and express. One of the people that I've really been holding, one of the mothers that I've been holding, and this week I just kept looking at mothers and saying, what is that quality? Will is that quality. I kept trying to find out about Lucille Bridges. So this is Ruby Bridges' mother. And there isn't a whole lot that many of you may know. She made her transition last November. She was 86, I believe. She was still in New Orleans. But I kept looking at, they have some interviews, and they have interviews of the the marshals and the people who walked with her, and it was fascinating to hear. But I kept thinking, so here is Lucille Bridges. In, 1954, they passed the law that was to go throughout the country, that separate but equal was okay, and to move into desegregating the schools. Many states did not allow that and did not do that. And so in I believe it was 55, parents in New Orleans, and they were just one of the cases, filed a lawsuit. It took until 1960 for that, probably until 1959, for that to go through the court system and all of the pieces, and finally they got their answer, and the NAACP put out a call to all the parents in New Orleans because they were still they decided to require of all of the black students who wanted to go into these schools to require a test to see if they could meet the standards. Now, of the 165, which of course it's illegal, but they did it anyway, 5 girls passed that test. And then, brings tears to my eyes, Ruby's mother looked at that, and her father said, I don't want her going someplace where they don't want her. And her mother said she prayed, and this is on one of her interviews, and she knew that it was theirs to do, that she could maybe change another life, change the quality of another life if her daughter went to school. And so that's what they did. But what's fascinating is I look at that. It's so easy now to see that, how she's changed the world. There was a time when no one else was supporting her in that idea. She had an education through the 8th grade. She was born to sharecroppers. Usually they only go to school through 3rd grade, so her mother had made a decision that she would stay in longer. But she said, I knew it was mine to do. And I love that idea. And so literally she walked Ruby to school every single day. What I didn't know until I was getting the research was that first day, a city police officer actually drew a gun on her. Because the idea was if we shoot the mother, the child won't go. I never saw that in the news. I actually looked at old newspapers, and you ought to see from that city, from that day. And then at the end of that first day, all the people got in their cars and followed them home. Ruby's dad lost his job. Her grandparents, so Lucille's parents, lost where they were living, their long-term farm, and their life changed forever. And she got up and walked her daughter to school every single day. That's what the universe is asking of us. And that can seem so difficult and it's like, wow, what was the strength? At some point, she had to make a choice, and this is the mom. And then she had to have commitment to follow it through. And she had to have willingness to be able to take. The yelling didn't stop. The yelling didn't stop. In one of the interviews by the National Marshals, the U.S. Marshals, one of the men said he didn't know what was happening with Ruby, that he kept hearing words. And he finally realized that she was praying, that her mother had taught her that anyone yelling at her was just ignorant and they didn't know yet what they didn't know. And her job was to pray for them. And so when she didn't know what else to do, she was taught to pray for the people that were yelling at her. I kept thinking, that same will, it's not just placed in one person or another person or another person. It's within us now. Will is already there. We get to call it forth. The thing is, I'd like to call it forth in something big like that to change the world. But what we have to do is take our day and our being and begin to call divine will forth in our life, which means we get to get quiet enough to listen. Not my will, thy will. Infinite Spirit, remind me of who I am, of what the next step is, and all that I'm to know. Because all of the answers go with us. All of that there is. But when we're at the back side of that, Lucille couldn't see that her daughter would make it through a year. She couldn't see that the world would ever change. But she had to use that quality. Yes, there's faith. Yes, there's an understanding that God is with us. Yes, there is so much. But there is will that says, today I get out of bed. Today I walk through this. And I find that in the toughest times of my life, if I will align my will with something larger, I take a step and a step and a step, and I find myself on the other side of something that terrified me. Every one of us is getting to recreate our belief in who we are. I am enough. It actually requires our will to meet all of the sayings we have in our mind that tell us we're not. Anybody here at home have I'm not enough come up this week? We do have some. We're all meeting that. And we don't know if we're going to walk on the other side and come out. But it's the divine will that, first of all, has the faith. Wait a minute. Every being's a creation of spirit. That includes me. We have the understanding God is present. And then we begin to align our will with that deeper knowing. And we meet it. And I find that we meet it and we blow it and we meet it and we blow it. And then it just continues to grow, and eventually it expresses as us. But I can tell you, I just know that Lucille Bridges, there were days she didn't want to get out of bed. There had to have been days when she thought, can I really hear these names again? Can I meet my daughter's questions? But the commitment to walk the walk we have, whether we understand it, whether we know the value of it or not, is where we begin to change our world. As humanity, when we say we're just walking each other home, the underlying idea of I am enough moves into an idea of you are enough. When we want to love our neighbor as ourselves and we haven't quite done it, go back to yourself. I am enough. And begin to hold that I may not know who they are or what they go through, but I know that the presence is within them. And I've been doing just what Ruby does. Pray, seeing a lifting in their understanding, and then go back to what is mine to do. I believe every one of us is called right now to walk through individual things. I believe we are called to walk through collective things like we've never seen before. And it is messy, it's painful, but it is Spirit saying, expand yourself, build a deeper understanding. And so as we make a choice, look at your choices. If they are fueled with your anger and your, this is wrong, this is not there, and believe me, that's okay. I have that all the time. Just take a breath and ask yourself, is this my personal will? Or is there something larger to align this with? That I can say, this is who I am. I bless you. I surround you in light. I am enough to take the next step in my world. Sometimes I can't see the wholeness in my family, in my daughters, in their struggles as they overcome their early life experience and what happened to them. But I know this, when I can take a moment and hold the light, I find the light and they find the light. And the mothering that we're all being called to do, every human, is for a higher vision of the love that we are to encircle this planet. Have a love-filled week. Blessings. That's who we are. And you know, this opportunity to do that, as we're going to receive our tithes and our love offerings, this opportunity to know God as our source is part of that journey. We have been taught what Lynn Twist calls the biggest lie, that there isn't enough. And if I get a piece of the pie, you don't. Actually, the universe doesn't work that way. The quantum field doesn't work that way. And so we get to open to the idea of enough. And as we use the divine love that we are, and I'm going to say our blessing, and then we're going to repeat it, affirm it together, we find something in our hearts going, divine love, as me, blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Let's affirm that together. Divine love, as me, blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. And we are so blessed. Thank you.
There was a time in my life I thought I'd have to do it all was sufficient. I didn't know the love of God and the will of God was at hand. But now I can say, you've got to let it go. Let it all go. And this is what you have to say. I release and I let go. I let the Spirit run my life. Get on your feet. And my heart is open wide. Yes, I'm only here for God. No more struggle, no more strife. With my faith, I see the light. I am free in the Spirit. Yes, I'm only here for God. I release and I let go. I let the Spirit run my life. My heart is open wide. Yes, I'm only here for God. Whoa. No more struggle, no more strife. With my faith, I see the light. I am free, free in the Spirit. Yes, I'm only here for God. I release and I let go. I let the Spirit run my life. And my heart is open wide. 'Cause I'm only here for God. No more struggle, no more strife. My faith lets me see the light. I am free in the Spirit. Yes, I'm only here for God. I am free in the Spirit. Yes, I'm only here for God.
Whoa, yes. And that freedom of spirit flows through all of us. Thank you, Reverend Sydney. Thank you, Charlie. We are so blessed. We are going to just simply stand and be a vehicle for peace on this planet. That's what we're here for. That's what we come to do as we sing, "Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me."
Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be, with God as creator. Family all are we. Let us walk with each other in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my joyous vow. To take each moment and live each moment, peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me.
Be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. And we join together in our unity prayer. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. Thank you, God. Have a love-filled week. Thank you, thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you for this day. Thank you, I want to thank you, oh, thank you for this day. You know, I really want to thank you, thank you for this day. One more time. for this day.